Okay, hi and welcome to 101-7. So I'm marking all of these in Blackboard, so you are seeing exactly what I'm seeing in Blackboard, and that will help you understand the formatting for grading and how things look when they come into the system, etc. What you're seeing is exactly what I'm seeing in the marking part of Grade Centre. So for this, just make sure that here we go. We can rotate it. Yes, excellent. Okay, so the princess is saying froggy, froggy, and then she's walking along the path. Just make sure that your any submissions are up the right way. I always find there's the odd one that is a little bit kind of upside down. But this is great. The path obviously goes from the top right down to the bottom left and has the river here, so that works nicely. So on to the next one. Okay, and then so the path is still going top right, bottom left, which is excellent. And there's a straight on kind of frog blocking the princess thing here. I would put the frog a little bit over to the left and the princess to the right, or crop in a lot closer and get the camera a bit lower, but that is looking fine. And now I'm pausing it in between. So we go into a closer shot where the princess reaches down and picks up the frog. The frog is pretty much in the same size as he was in the previous scene, so the previous shot, so that is going to look like a jump cut. Now I can see in this also that there is the words for the previous, oh there you are, and the numbers, which helps immensely. Now when she says I really don't want to do this, you're a frog, just be careful of these profile-y shots. Use them very sparingly. Remember your rule of thirds. Put the frog down in the bottom third and the princess up at top. And it's always better to have two eyes of one character or the other, the frog or the princess. And now we're going for the close-up shot of the frog over the shoulder of the princess. That works really nicely. And then when we go for this reverse shot, the frog is in a good place. Just put the princess up in the top right so that you'll use a lot more of the frame. So we go on to the princess throwing the frog down, which is fine, especially if the frog moves in this direction. That's a really nice direction for the action. Then the princess storms off in the same direction that she came from, the frog looking remarkably like a kind of a bug down in the corner. So this next one is one PDF, which makes it a lot easier to mark. So the first is a high angle wide as Princess walks. It's great to have the style of the shot as well. Next we go to an over the shoulder of the princess, continuing walking, looking side to side for something. So I'm not sure if we're from the behind or in front of the princess. Looks like we're from behind and she's walking in that direction. Excuse me. We go to a loose mid of the frog in the path. If the princess is in the bottom left, which is where you've placed her in these two, put the frog up top right, like this shot as well. And then that will allow for looking room and for room for the princess to enter the scene. So here's a very top-down shot. It almost makes things look like lay dots, which was an animation a very, very long time ago, where everything was just dots. And just, I know that you can have access to drones, but just be wary of getting too high over the top of your characters. Also, as this scene here, these lines here, just make sure that they match, or unless you have a very strong reason for going over the top. Now, the frog jumping into the princess's hand is an action that you really want to see quite close because it is an action. If we're this far away, there's a large possibility of missing what is happening in the action. And now 2-shot mid. The princess says, I really don't want to do this. Now if you draw like this and then you're like, actually I want the framing to be tighter, you can just draw the framing tighter. But do remember the rule of thirds. Get a more, that these 2 shots are very, very straight on. In fact, the frog looks bottom left when actually the frog was top right. So do make sure that those 2 people hold the same place in the frame as they have done previously. So it's good to go on a tighter shot, make sure that there's looking room and you obey all those rules of composition. Yeah, gads, I forgot that word. So close up on frog as it falls to the ground. And now because we're so tight on these characters, it's very hard to see what happens with the action. So do move to a wider shot for the action. And then there's the over the shoulder of the frog as the princess walks away. Given that the princess was actually coming from the top right, do make her go away in that same direction, otherwise it will feel weird if she goes to a different direction. Mid shot of the frog looking sad is fine. On to the next one. Start off the screen. Princess starts off the screen and walks into the frame. Excellent. So there's a wide static shot with the river over here. Princess parts the grass looking on this side. So we've got really nice action from the princess going through here. Then when we go to the close-up shot, the eyes dart left and right, the hands to the mouth. She's calling froggy froggy. Just get the princess further over to the left. Now these 2 shots here look exactly the same. The princess is in the same framing and is the same size. So that will look like a jump cut, and that's what you want to avoid as much as possible. Just bottom line, just don't have them. So then she points down at the frog. Oh, there you are. So just have that as one continuous shot. Now remember your setup here, where the path went from bottom right to bottom left to top right. Sometimes I have to hold my fingers on my forehead like an owl just to figure out which is left and right. So do again have the princess bottom left and the top frog top right, and this river flowing in a more of a canted direction. So then the princess picks up the frog. Now if you look here, the river is in this direction and then the river is in this direction. That's what will add to the discontinuity, or the it will give the audience a feeling of disassociation, because they're like, oh, I thought the river was there. What? Where's the river now? I'm confused. Do avoid the profile shots. I really don't want to. Good, excellent. And over the shoulder of a frog. Now he is saying spare me the tears, but it's fine. We can see the princess's reaction as we're hearing what is going on with the frog. I would go with it over the shoulder of the princess as well, either in this one or in this one, to balance that, or both. She says you've got no class, turns hand upside down. This says close up over shoulder. This says close up over shoulder, but this is the only one that actually looks like an over the shoulder shot. Just be aware of that. So she turns her hand flat, the frog drops, she stomps off again. These 2 shots are very close and will make a jump cut. Fin! Excellent. I like fin. Fin! So a JPEG or a PDF is fine in answer to your question. 1A. 1B means that this is exactly the same shot, it just shows different things, so the camera doesn't stop moving. Wide shot from Princess Castle Bridge, walking down the path. Path goes from left to right at the top, right to left at the bottom. So bridge, path, and so we do a dolly zoom in, which is fine. A crane in would be good. So basically what you're saying is the camera goes closer to here. Avoid zooms if you can. They were overused in the 70s. They're quite hard to edit into and out of. But if you do have that smooth camera kind of stopping the camera motion at the start and end, that does make it easier. So Princess is looking for the frog. Froggy, froggy, her head turns left and right. The positioning of the princess looks really good here. She has continually been kept in the right side of the screen, and as we go closer, she's top right. So that is really nice as far as the composition goes. Looking for frog, she's found the frog. The frog is down here. Princess flicks the hair and then says, there you are, as she sees the frog, which is a really good, relevant point. It's not likely the princess is going to go, oh, there you are, before seeing the frog. Having one shot of the princess going, froggy, froggy, oh, there you are. It shows the princess seeing the frog, but it doesn't show the audience seeing the frog, so do keep that in mind. So then she turns her head, flicks her hair, and sees the frog. The frog is down here. And the frog is exactly the same direction as she's looking. She's looking down to the bottom left of the screen, which is where in the next shot the frog appears. Princess's hand comes down from the top right, which is where the princess has been placed in the previous screen. So this is a really good example of how we can see continuity work well in a film. So then, yuck, she holds the frog up to examine it. So princess is still top right, frog is still bottom left, but we can see how they relate to each other in the actual frame itself. Then we zoom to the face. Not so keen about zooms, not going to mark you down on it though. Prefer you to not include zooms in any of the footage that you shoot. I really don't want to do this. Zoom to the Alps, not sure. 6A, 6B, 6C. Zoom into the lips. Okay, so we've gone from a wide to a closer, right into the lips. Just get her face in the same angle as this. So her chin would be coming down here, and then the lips would be here. So when we zoom in, get that chin down here and coming up here. Put the lips here, faced in that direction towards the frog. So the frog's kind of going, spare me the tears, flicking the princess off with his little hand. Princess says, you've got no class. Drops the frog down, so we cut to a wider shot, show the action. Slow motion, die hard fall. So this is really great. It's very descriptive. I'm not sure if I've mentioned this before, but when I was doing storyboards, I did a storyboard for a short film, and at one point there was two waiters there, and I actually wanted them to be shown as penguins, so I drew them as penguins. Wouldn't recommend it, but when I took it to the director of photography, I just said, hey, I'm sorry, but this is what I want the feeling to be. And he looked at it and he went, great, excellent, now I know you want those waiters to look like penguins. I was like, yes, thank you, I don't know how you could do that. He's like, that's great, as long as I know. So that was really important for him. So this is great, slow motion die hard fall, where we see the camera above the frog and the frog is splatting on the ground. And then we get the camera down low, so we see the frog falling away from the camera, and the camera is really low, and the frog almost falls towards the camera, splats on the ground, and we just see the rustle of the princess's dress as she storms off, or whatever. Yep, she does, she grunts, she spins, and she storms away. And then she goes here. We could get that grunting, spinning, and then storming over here, and then she could go in this direction after that. The end. Fin. Nice. Okay, in this we have a long grass, the sound of a frog chirping. Excellent. So what you've done is you've given us a scene, you've given us an introduction to a film, a visual, oral introduction without showing us any characters whatsoever. This is quite often done in filmmaking, and it's a really good, yet subtle, yet very, it's a storytelling technique. And as filmmakers, you are telling stories, so that works well. So we've heard the frog as the audience. We know it's somewhere in the grass. And then we see the princess. It's quite a close shot on the princess, so we're almost like slamming into the princess's face, going this close. I think a wide, rather than going into this princess so close, would be easier for the audience. The reason why is because a wide is more of an establishing shot. It shows the audience where the princess is, introduces the audience to that character before we get in too close. And it's almost like in real life, where if you turn around, someone's right in your face, it's like, "Wah! Ah! What are you doing there?" Whereas if you turn around and someone is further away and they come up and they're like, "Hey, hi, I'm John," then you're like, "Oh, hey, John," and then you see them entering your own personal space. Okay, so we've got a lot to go through. I'll try and make it a little bit speedier. Camera lifts from the shot of the long grass to reveal the frog in the grass, which is great. You could have the angles the same as this, and then go to the princess saying "froggy, froggy" if you want. So we've got this low shot of the camera down low, which works well. But what I do see is that these shots are very different from each other, and that means you're avoiding a jump cut, which is great. There you are. She kneels down. She picks up the frog, goes, it almost looks like a little green frog sandwich. We go to the over the shoulder. Don't want to do this. I like the way you split up the line. I really don't want to do this. Camera high shot tilts up as the princess stands. So she has the frog in her hands here. I think in this shot, as she scoots him down, we kind of imagine her to stand up with the frog here. So to have her standing with the frog in this shot is a little disjunctive, I guess, is a little separate. So on to the next one, as we're kept in waiting as the file is rendering. Yeah. Okay, but the next one is page 3. So do make sure, Ray, that you've got page 2. Excellent, there's page 2 there. I really don't want to do this. And then we get close into that frog. Make sure he's a little bit to the left. Frog, make sure her lips are a little bit to the right, just to keep the difference between them. If you see both things in the same place in a shot, it almost jars, almost slams them into each other, makes it a bit difficult. So we zoom in for an ECU. How tight do we get on that frog? Just put a little bit of framing around how tight we get on that frog. Spare me the tears, princess. Is he saying that while we're focused on the princess? It's a little bit difficult to say. Expression changes from pucker to shock. Great. Slow motion fall. Close-up splayed on the ground. And then she says, "You've got no class." And then she storms off. Interesting how that separates there. So then the camera movement is the blue arrow and the direction of the action is the red arrow. It would have been good to have that key at the very start just to make it really clear. So the camera lowers back into, but you have got descriptions. The camera lowers back into the long grass, sound of the river, and then the frog chirp and a plop. Sounds like it jumps into the water. So this final shot here is pretty much exactly the same as the first shot that we had, and that bookends really nicely. On to the next. So we have an external river shot in the daytime. Beside the river, a young woman, the princess, is walking on a path. She's looking for something in the grass beside the river. What we see is very clear description and a very clear drawing of what's going on, including the fact that the princess looks very detailed and sharp. The path goes slightly from the top right, upper right, down to the bottom left. Now we go from a wide of the princess, her head's turning, she's scanning here, to a closer shot of the princess, and that works really well. Froggy, froggy, oh there you are. Now she might be looking around going froggy, froggy, and then pointing and going, oh there you are. Then we see this shot of the frog, which looks almost like he's going to zoom off in that direction. He's like, oh no, damn, spotted, which looks great. Frog's bottom left, princess top right. Excellent. Princess moved down to the bottom left of the frog and scoots him up. Says here she sees a frog in the middle of the path. She reaches out to pick it up. She looks at the frog carefully. So you can see these shots are very different from each other. Here's this wide establishing. We go into a medium shot of the princess. We go into a closer shot of the frog. And then we have this covering the action. We go into more of a kind of a head and shoulders shot of the princess holding the frog in her hands. The frog still retains the same place on the screen as he did in this shot, which is bottom left. So hopefully you're starting to understand the screen direction. I really don't want to do this. I mean, you're a frog. We have the over shoulder of the frog here. Over the shoulder of the princess here. Spare me the tear. Let's just get this over and done with. I love the way his legs sticking out like that. Princess gets angry. We go in closer than we were here. So now we're super close at the princess, going, you've just got no class. And then we cut to a wide. I don't know how to get rid of this. I can't. This is blackboard. Okay, no, it's not going to happen. So we cut to a wide and the princess throws the frog on the ground and storms off. So really nice depiction of where they are in the space here. So even though the path changes place, the princess always remains on the right side of the screen. The frog always remains on the left, and that's a really good example of how to get screen direction to work for you. Ah, there we go. She jumps the frog on the ground and storms off. And so these smaller arrows are for the action, the larger arrows are also for the action of the princess as well. Very clear, very distinct, nicely done. What it also has done is shown the camera person exactly where the camera goes, which is great. Okay, so we have a wide shot of the princess walking down the path and over the shoulder of the princess looking for something on the path. So we haven't revealed even what she's looking for. She's just looking. Then we go to the other side of the princess. So here we're behind her. Here we're in front of her. The shot is also closer. That works really well. So the shot is different even though the princess, see how the princess is really tiny in this frame, a lot larger in this frame. In this frame, she's a lot larger. So they're not going to look like jump cuts. They're going to look really nice, flowing, really nicely flowing. Poof, can't talk properly right now. So then we go for a whip pan from the princess to the frog, which is going to be slightly disorientating for the audience. But suddenly we see the frog. As she sees the frog, froggy, froggy, ah, there you are. Very clear, which is great. So the frog looks a little bit closer in this than it does in that. Just get those shots a little more varying. Now we cut to an incredible wide for the princess to bend over and pick up the frog. I would go for a closer shot. Going to this wide throws the audience out of the scene because we can't really see any of the emotions going on between the princess and the frog. We can't even really see the action. It's almost like you're very far away from your friends over there. And you want to get closer because you want to see what's going on. So then in this one, she's holding the frog in her hand. Excuse me. And then for this, we go to the close-up shot. I'm not quite sure why we go to her head from this shot that has the two of them. So let's go to part 2 and find out what's going on. While this is rendering, it gives me just a little bit of space to mention again that the motivation for the camera moving is the best thing. So motivation for the reason for having shots as well is good as well. So there's no words, and I think that's a little bit confusing. But the princess is on the left and the frog is on the right. Let's just go back to the previous one. Princess on the left, frog on the right. Yes, good for screen direction. Just make that frog a little bit further over to the right. And the princess is great on the left. So the frog's kind of a little bit tentative. The princess is puckering up. The frog's closing his eyes. The princess opens her eyes and says, I really don't want to do this. The frog opens his eyes. So that's a really nice, basically the shot's bouncing from this to this. It preempts the kiss. Suddenly the princess opens her eyes. The frog opens his eyes. So there's a really nice mirroring going on there as well. I wouldn't do the side profile. I'm not sure why you've chosen to do that. I would just go with the same shot as these here. The side profile doesn't really do anything. It doesn't add anything to the story. And that is why you change the shots or the angles or whatever. She says, I mean, you're a frog. Close up on Froggy frowning. And then we go to the frog looking grumpy, spare me the tears, princess. So we get this really extreme close up on his eyes of the frown, and then the audience is kind of thrown out of the action a little bit. But that makes sense because actually in the story, the frog has been thrown out of the action has been thrown out of the action by that kind of succession of shots leading up to the kiss, and then suddenly it didn't happen. So that's a really nice way of echoing what is going on in the script, is actually you're leading the audience towards thinking the princess and the frog are going to kiss, and then suddenly the princess opens her eyes, and that stops that motion, which works really well. So get that frog over to the right. Let's just get this over with. Focus on princess with raised eyebrows. Great. Or she could raise her eyebrows in the shot. Princess with raised eyebrows. Froggy frowning. So it's almost like this is a little bit of a standoff. And then she says, "You've got no class." Frog looks surprised. Princess drops the frog down on the path. There's another whip pan, echoing the whip pan before of the princess seeing the frog, which is great. It's nice to have these kind of bookend correlations here. And then we go to a wide shot, the princess walking down the path, close up of the froggy looking surprised, back to the wide of the froggy looking surprised. I don't know if it needs to have... Oh, I know what you're doing. You're echoing the same emotion in these shots. And then we go to an extreme wide angle of the froggy alone on the path. Put the frog bottom right, that's bottom left, that's where he's always been. I really like the extreme wide angle, and then, all by myself will come in, and, epic music. Frog looks really lonely, very, very, very alone in that shot. You don't have to have the cheesy music soundtrack. Great. So that is a really good example of how you can use the camera work to add to the storytelling. Nicely done. Okay. So we have a wide shot down the path here. Mountains are in the top third. The action is in the lower third, really nicely framed. And then we go down onto the princess as she moves into the next shot. There is quite a bit of only the left side of the frame being used here, so just make her sweep all the way around, get the camera angle so that she uses up the whole framing. Same with this here. I know there's a river here, but do get the action using up all the frame too. So this is in a little bit of a different format. So we cut to the closer shot of the princess. Now, the princess is in the right side of the frame, and then suddenly she's on the left side of the frame, so do be aware of that. Keep her on the same side. Froggy, froggy, we go to a close-up of the legs. Oh, there you are. So in this here, this shot, it looks like she's walking from the right to the left, and therefore she will encounter that frog on the left. So that's the premise that you've set up here by having her enter the scene and walk along here, is that we expect that the frog will be over to the left bottom. So if you turn her in the frame without showing where the frog is, it feels strange, it feels jumpy. She is taking up visually the same amount of the frame, even though her head's bent down like this, so do be aware that that will look like a jump cut as well. So here looks really good, close up on the legs. She's in the left side of the frame, the frog is in the right. Put him a little more bottom right. I love the way his head is tilted up almost to the angle that her head would be. That works really nicely. So let's just see if I go like this. There we go. She reaches down to pick up the frog, and then she looks at the frog carefully. Just get that frog further over. So you see all this negative space around here? Negative space is the stuff that isn't being used in the shot or in the art. So there's a lot of negative space around here and a lot of negative space around here. So just bump that princess back a little bit so that she kind of kneels here. And the frog, keep the frog in the same place, and then that will use up a lot more of the frame. Same with the frog, get the frog over here or down here, and then that will use up more of the frame. Okay, so we go to a close-up of the face of the princess. Just move her over to the left. Close-up of the frog, of the face of the froggy. Now, especially with film, because these are quite, they're almost a semi 4x3 frames. They might be 16x9. But as film gets lower and higher on the top and bottom and wider here, then you do need to do your framing more to the left and right. With 4x3, you basically only could do a profile shot for portrait style framing, but now there's a lot more room in the frame. But I really like this. They mirror each other. The heads are very much nearly the same size in the frame. That works really well. Spare me the tears, says the frog. We cut to this shot here where she goes, you've got no class. She separates her hand, the frog dumps down. Again, I'd put her to the left just slightly. And then we go to a wider shot of her spinning around. Close up of the froggy. He looks like he's staring down the barrel of the frame camera. Now, if the frog is in the bottom right, put him in the bottom right. Put the princess in the top left. It looks like she's looking down here at the frog, when actually, if she was staring at the frog, she'd be down here. Now, her head might be turning. It's a little hard to tell, and I think that's something that about storyboards is just make it as clear as possible. If you have to have words, put words in. So she storms off. Maybe she does turn around in this because now we see her back. I love her Mickey Mouse ears. Are they Mickey Mouse ears? I don't know, some kind of princess hat. So she storms off. Down on the princess, move out to the next, back to the wide shot that was almost a bookend of the previous. Okay, this filmmaker said that it all went well except for leaving room for the extra text. Which they have learnt for next time. Learn it for next time is absolutely fantastic. So here we have the frog and the princess very, very far away, and then she calls and she comes into the scene. Now the princess is top right and the frog is bottom left. Then it looks like the princess enters. This is the princess here entering from the left. Just be careful, because the camera is on the right side of the frog and the left side of the princess. We want to keep the camera on the right side of the frog and the left side of the princess throughout, unless they turn around in the middle of the frame. So this cute little heart appears over the froggy when he says the princess. Just be wary of the princess's hat blocking the frog here. So then she picks up the frog. See how if you put them more one side or the other, it will aid your filmmaking skills immensely. So we go to, I really don't want to do this, and then you're a frog. Nice swearing from the frog. Spare me the tears, let's get this over with. Can you see how it's very straight on and things kind of block each other, and then when the camera cuts, well, naturally we kind of want to look with our eyes to the left and right of frame when the camera cuts, when the shot cuts. And so if everything's all positioned in the middle, it does become a little bit confusing. You've got no class, like the little apostrophe, and then she slams the frog down and storms off. On to the next wide shot, Princess by the River. And now the princess is going from the bottom left to top right. We are on the right side of the princess. So if she walks over this direction, then actually you've crossed the line. So she needs to be walking in the other direction. So the camera always needs to be on her right shoulder. And here again, the camera's on the left. So always keep the camera on the same side as you start of that person. Frog hops towards the princess. We have a close-up of the frog. Point of view of the princess looking down on the frog. Scoops up the frog. Looks intently. So your actual shots are great. This wide, going to a closer, going to a closer, going to a super close. They're great. Use the frame left and right and make sure that your screen direction is sorted. So we get the side-on profiling, nice puckering of the lips. We even go into an ECU of the puckering of the lips, which is great. Just make sure that the frog is filling the screen a lot more in this ECU. Go to an ECU of the princess's face, looking really like she's super into that kiss. Check her out. Princess tosses the frog away, and then we pan with the frog. So I presume that the camera pans with the frog to see it landing, maybe? Not 100% sure. Make it clear for your camera person, and then the princess storms off to the left. Now, double checking, she was walking left to right, and now suddenly she's walking right to left, so do be aware of that. Okay, shot 1, grass and princess is walking bottom right to top left. Indicates a very hard struggle for the princess, if you know much about the framing for composition for shots. And then she sees the frog directly above her, so we are on the left side of the princess, and here we're on her right side. Do be aware of that. So it goes from that long shot to the closer to the ECU, which is good. And then we cut out. I think it would be better if we go to that ECU, where she's carefully looking at the frog and then she says something. Because if you go to this wider shot, it's almost like it throws the audience out before she actually says something. I don't want to do this. I mean, you're a frog. Now these two shots here are the same. That will be a jump cut. That closer shot works better. Let's get this over with, and the puckering of the lips. You've got no class. Now, if the princess is on the left, her arms will come from that direction as well. So whatever place you put your character in, make their arms come from that same place as well. She drops the frog and off she goes. Okay, close up of the river. Nice. Close up of feet walking beside the river. A young woman, the princess, is walking on a path. Excellent. So when we get introduced to this character, we see her feet. Her shoes will tell us what kind of a character she is. The way she walks will tell us what kind of character she is. We've seen the river flow, so she's walking by a river. That tells us about the character. Then she sees a frog in the middle of the path. Not sure where the frog is here, but we see the frog in this shot here, which, works well. It would be great if we just saw the feet of the frog like we see the feet of the princess. That would mirror the feet of the princess quite nicely. But I really don't want to do this. You're a frog. Then we go to the super EQ of the frog. Well, we see spare me the tears. Princess says you've got no class. We get a close-up on her face, an extreme close-up, so we really can see what's going on in between the emotions of both of these characters. Slow zoom out to a wide shot. She dumps the frog on the ground and storms off. Dolly, yes. Tracking, yes. Zoom. I've mentioned that. But what we do see is we see the camera on the same side of the princess, which is her right side, throughout this whole entire scene. And then when she says you've got no class, it's almost like, because we only shoot her left side of her face, it's almost like she's already turning and storming. Then we see the frog here and she's walking away from the frog. So that is a good reason to show, for the camera to be on her left side, because actually the camera is still on the same side of the frog as it was before. The princess has turned around, not the camera. So this filmmaker said they've been away from home this weekend. They're using what's valuable to them. They said if anything is too hard to see or read, they can take photos, but it's looking fine. Wide angle, princess enters the scene. Yay! Over the shoulder noise from the bushes, so we're on the right side of the princess. We hear the ribbit. We're still on the right side of the princess. We see her face. Now, do you introduce the froggy first, or does she walk through here going, froggy, froggy, ribbit? Ah, there you are. which to me would make it flow a little bit easier. I'm not going to mark you down on that though, it's your own choice. The camera is still on the right side. There's a nice shot, reverse shot action happening here. That all works well. Hand searches in the bushes. Whip pan to the frog. Cigarette in his mouth. Gutter frog. Sitting, smoking, staring up at the princess. Princess has question marks all around her. Really good way of describing a WTF moment that's happening between the princess and the frog. So she reaches down to pick up the cigarette smoking kind of gangster frog here, which works really well. And then we'll just get the right angle here. Wide shot as the confused princess holds and studies the frog. Now what you've done is you've gone from the closer shot to this wider shot. It's almost allowed the audience to go remove themselves from the scene a little bit as well. So as the princess is detaching herself from the frog, the audience is detaching themselves from the situation as well, which suits the camera work. Princess is going, I really don't want to do this. She's holding the frog tentatively by as little as she can. The ECU goes, we slammed into this close-up of the frog, blowing smoke up at the princess. Excellent work. We get this smoke in the face of the princess. Excellent. Frog is going, spare me the tears, let's get this over with. The frog is playing a really high status here. We cut closer. See the frog filling up kind of about maybe 1/3 less than the frame, and here the frog fills up over a half. That is not going to be a jump cut. That works really well. Princess, we got the over the shoulder of the princess still holding the frog by like one finger. The frog's hanging in there looking for a kiss. Princess says her line, and then we see the ECU of the frog. At the moment he's dropped, his eyes open up. He's like, whoa! And then he'll presumably fall out of the shot. And then we go to the wider shot where the frog crashes back on the path and the princess walks away. A really nice example of how to pull in and the audience and how to release the audience a little bit further back as one of the characters is feeling less involved in the scene. So too, you have allowed the audience to get more space, which works really nicely. Okay, so this student resubmitted to get the 180-degree rule. However, for some reason, I can't turn this around on screen. Damn, I don't know why Blackboard is doing that. Let's see if I can do that on here. No. No, I don't know why. Okay, well, we have to do it this way. So, princess is walking on the path. Grass, princess. Camera's on the left. Froggy, froggy, looking around in the grass. Froggy, close up, legs walking. Nice, good change of the camera there. Close up of the frog on the path. Good, princess is to the left. Froggy's to the right. Oh, there you are. She sees the frog after the audience has. Nice. She goes in. She goes in to pick up the frog. We go in for a closer shot. Excellent. Frog looks real happy. Just make sure he's a little further over to the right. The princess says, I don't want to do this. I mean, ... Excellent. So nice framing there. You're a frog as we cut to the frog there himself. Then he says, spare me the tears, princess. Let's get this over with. We go for a close-up on the frog's mouth, which is probably what the princess is looking at. And then the princess says, you've just got no class. We cut to the wide for the action. Close up of the upside down frog as he's being tossed. We go back to the wide as the princess turns around and storms away. The end. Okay, so walks towards the corner of the bridge looking for something in the grass. Wide shot showing everything in a good establishing shot. Close up of the princess yelling to find the frog. Just make sure that if the princess is on the right side, left side, keep her there. Two shot, not really since it's a frog. But you can have a two shot with a frog. It's just the frog is the other character, not a person. So the princess gets down to see the frog super up close. Great. Reaches down to pick the frog up. So we got the frog in closer. Just make sure that the frog fills up more of the screen here. I understand that it is a frog, so it's a little bit difficult to draw to scale. Princess talking to the frog. I really don't want to do this. Then we go to the ECU of the frog, showing the frog with no emotion present. Just keep that frog in this shot a little bit further over to the right and have her arms entering from the left side. Is that it? Yep. And on to page 2. And then we go to the ECU of the princess. I mean, you're a frog. Angry frog voicing his opinion. Showing the princess's emotion. Good, so we've got close shots showing the princess's emotion. Do make sure princess is left, frog is right, as you've established in the start. Spare me the tears, princess, let's get this over with. Princess shows her anger in the frog's comment. Little pans at start showing emotion. Not 100% sure what you mean there. Princess, and then we cut to the wide of the princess dumping the frog, low angle wide shot, so actually we're down at the frog's level when the princess dumps the frog down. He jumps away, princess storms off, and we are left behind with the frog as he's watching the princess walk away. Nice having the frog down on the right and the princess on the left. So here we have the princess on the right side, walking on a path looking for something. Froggy, there you are. So instead of a froggy, it's actually a statement. Ribbit. So the princess has seen the frog. Now the frog has seen the princess. It looks like the frog is on the right and the frog is on the left and the princess is on the right. But when she picks up the frog, her arms appear from the left, and that can get a bit confusing. So have her arms appear from the same side as she was placed in the previous shot. So she looks at him carefully. I really don't want to do this. I need to move the framing up a little bit. There we go. Frog says, just get this over with. Princess says, you have no class. So just make sure that that princess stays over to the right and the frog stays over to the left, because that's what you're determined at the very start. Cool. So on to the next. Ha! I love this. She dumps the frog on the ground. Blurring, moving frog shot. Excellent. And then it ends. Great. Okay, so some of you have said, excuse my drawing. Honestly, you have not seen mine. My drawing is pretty random and stick figures. As long as it's very clear what is happening in the shot, that's all that matters. So one long shot, princess is walking and looking for the frog. Just show which direction she's walking in. And I presume she's entered from the left and is walking along here. And do remember to make the path in the river just a little bit more from the top to the bottom, or a little more diagonal across the frame. It just helps increase the three-dimensional aspects of the frame. Okay, so number 2, froggy, oh there you are, wide shot. Make these more different. So make this one further away and this one closer. You can see the princess is using up pretty much the same space in these shots, so they will feel like jump cuts even if they aren't exactly jump cuts. We've got a bokeh effect in the background, which is great. So we go in closer to the princess saying, I really don't want to do this, I mean you're a frog. That might be nicer if it was over the shoulder of the frog. And then you could do that kind of shot reverse shot action thing happening there. So close-up of the grumpy frog, extreme close-up, then show us in the frame, show us what you want the audience to see. Is that just his eyes? Is that his eyes and his mouth, or the frog's eyes and mouth, or is it their whole body, but because they're so small it needs to be a close-up involving their whole body? Is it just their pupil dilating or shrinking? They are the differences between ECUs, which is an extreme close-up. And you have got, because it's cartoon, you've got the whole world to play in. So we go for a close-up. The princess is shocked. We go to this longer shot showing the action of the princess dumping the frog, and then it says here the pan, shot 7, follow princess off. Now you can do that, but make sure that you stop the action of the camera at some point in time and allow the princess to keep walking out of the shot. Okay, so this, okay, we have 2. Nice. Let's see if we can get them any bigger. Come on, gadget thing, ding ding. Yes, no. So they don't get any bigger in here. There we go. Learning every day. Cool. So. Okay. So there's a bird's eye view on the river and path that the princess is walking along. If you make a decision, if the path is going from the bottom left to the top right, just echo that in the bird's eye. It doesn't have to go specifically from bottom left to top right, but even if we get an inkling of that, it would be good. Princess is looking in the grass, so we go to a close-up of her face, and then she sees the frog on the path. So currently we're all on the right side of her. She picks up the frog, looks at the frog, talks to the frog, frog talks to the princess. So these 2 shots are exactly the same. They are going to look like a jump cut. So go for those shoulder, over the shoulder shots, and look for different camera angles and things like that. The princess talks to the frog again, dumps the frog to the ground, walks off, and then we go back to this bird's eye bookend. Okay, we have 4 more. The student has given a really nice overall example of what is going on, and I can tell already from this overall we do get in closer, but he has the river coming from the top left down to the bottom right. We're on the left of the princess, left of the princess, left of the princess, right of the frog. That's a little bit straight on. The frog looks a little bit straight on, but we have this kind of coming from the far to the closer, to the real close-up on the eyes, to the extreme close-up on the eyes, which works really well. Let's have a look at the more detail. Okay, so the long shot sets the scene, and that it does. A princess in a forest by a stream with a walking down a path. She's walking, searching for the frog. Froggy, froggy, there you are. The background is blurred and a nice bokeh effect. Number 4, because actually this is to do with the next down. Similar to shot 2, she's still looking, so we've cut in closer to the princess and then back out again. I think eliminate this shot. It doesn't show us anymore as the audience. What it does is it pulls us in towards the princess and then throws us back out again. It says, hey, here's the princess, but you're not allowed to know anything about her. Let's just push you away again. So physically what you're doing with your shots as you're going in for closer is you're just gently pulling the audience away. And as you go further away, you're just gently pushing the audience away. So have a think about whether you want to lure the audience nearer or whether you actually want to push them away. So if we go from this shot here, froggy, froggy, there you are, to actually the frog in the grass, that would go really nicely. Now here we have the reverse shot of the close-up of the princess. No, we don't. It's a little bit confusing here. Okay, so the princess approaches the frog, bends down carefully looking at the frog, frog's looking back at her. Princess reaches towards the camera, screen left to right to pick up frog. Okay, so the princess is reaching down from the left to the right. The frog is being shot from behind. So, and then we go to the front of the frog and saying, I really don't want to do this. ECU, the frog's in the hand, brings the frog up to the close to the princess. Princess is looking nervous. Shot to the frog. I mean, you're a frog. EC of the princess's eyes. EC of the frog's eyes. Spare me the tears, princess. Let's just get this over with. We go further back from the princess. It's almost like when someone says something rude, you're like, whoa, you take a step back, which is exactly what you've done with this camera work. Take a step back. You've got no class. We're still right in tight into the frog, which makes him look a little bit leery because he was close before. Princess has stepped back. We're still exactly the same on the frog, so now the frog feels too close, which is great. This is too close as far as too close to the princess. So the princess looks upset, and that gives the princess reason to. She lowers the frog to the ground. She doesn't throw him. She storms off. Frog watches the princess disappear. So we're left with the frog at the end, watching the princess go. And then there's this wide, extreme wide shot, similar to the establishing, showing the princess returning back to where she came from. And this says 22 and this says 22, but there's a little note. Okay, so for this one we've got the wide shot of the princess walking by the path, and now the camera seems to be around the mid of the princess. So do have a look at establishing shots and look at how to set the scene. In storytelling, as in filmmaking, once upon a time, in a land very far away, there lived a princess very high up in a tall tower. So you know that the land is far away. You get the feeling of what is going on. So that is another reason for having an establishing shot in a loud city like a jungle, or in an urban rural landscape, so you do get that feeling of what's going on. Now I get to fight the machine. So from the shot of the princess we go to the close-up of the frog. Make sure that the frog is just a little bit further over to the right. Frog looks like it's hiding in grass, which is great. Now we get to wait for the system to come up with this. Okay, so Princess says, I really don't want to do this. I mean, you're a frog. So she crouches down and talks to him. Frog responds. I now do get some angles on. All these shots are shot quite straight on. So if you shoot the princess top right, frog bottom, princess top left, frog bottom right, then that will help your filmmaking. Now we cut to a shot of the princess. So there's been no jump cuts yet, which is great. And then this one, which I really like, which looks like actually the princess has kicked the frog into the water. So that shows a really good characterization of the princess. She's not a kind of the typical idea of a princess, because the typical idea of a princess wouldn't kick a frog into a river. They would place the frog gently down, maybe storm off in a bit of a tiz, etc. So nice characterization there. I'd recommend looking back at the rule of thirds so that you can get a more deeper understanding of how to frame your shots. Now this person has mentioned, they mentioned they're not too great at sketches. It doesn't matter. But what they did say was they can see how useful storyboards would be, especially in a long movie shoot. Yes, totally. If you're not the person behind the camera, and even if you are, just storyboarding it out really allows you to see the movie before you've shot it. And we all know that shooting movies takes time, energy, money, people, resources, you name it, it takes heaps. So the more prepared you are before you go into your shoot, the better. Some people choose to not storyboard, and that's understandable. But if you want your film to look visually really amazing, if you want one scene to blend really well, or you want to go into the hat of someone at the end of one scene and then pull out of the wall in the start of the next scene, you're only going to get those kind of really beautiful visual effects by storyboarding. It does help immensely. Right, okay, we're nearly finished. This is the second to last one. Princess is walking down the path, looking into the grass. The path is going top right to bottom left. The camera is on the right side of the princess. So it does mean you might have to stand in the river and shoot, but hey, some directors of photography are up for that. And so, you know, I don't know, what, get a drone. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we stay on the same side. Close-up of princess looking at the frog, great. ECU frog, extreme closest to the frog with the princess's feet and behind. Get low with the camera, which is great. Princess moves right to left and crouches down on the path. You could even have in this shot the princess crouching down and scooping up the frog, but this shot and this shot are the same, so you probably leave the camera in exactly the same place for these two shots, and then you can separate it with this shot later in the future. And that's another really good thing that storyboarding does, is it shows you what shots are very similar, so that you don't have to set your camera up 7 times to get 7 different shots. You might only need to set your camera up 3 times to get 7 different shots, because the shots are so similar that you keep the camera in the same place, and that saves time, money, resources, energy, blah blah blah. So, ECU of the princess's hand. See these hands come in from the same direction as the princess is. Close up the princess holding the froggy. I mean, I really don't want to do this. You're a frog. ECU of froggy and part of the princess's face. Spare me the tears. Let's just get this over with. The princess says you've got no class. There's a lot of negative space around here. Just get the camera in tighter so that we can really be involved in what's happening in between the princess and the frog. Princess drops the frog onto the path. And at the very end, the princess storms off. Alrighty, well done for watching this through. There's a crab shot along the river. First time anyone's mentioned a crab shot. Nicely done. So does the crab shot crab into the princess walking into the shot? I'm not 100% sure. It's not clear. Because they are separately named, it looks like they are 2 different shots, but because they are visually very similar, it will look like a jump cut unless they are 1A and 1B and the camera crabs onto the princess. So we go from very far away to very close up of the princess. Maybe do a mid before we go into this close up. And then we go to close up on the grass, excitement, close up. Close up of the frog. So princess is on the right, frog's on the left. Just make that princess a little more to the right, give her a little bit more looking room. I'll just move this up a little bit so that we can see the bottom of these frames. There we go. So then we cut to a wide, which is quite wide. It's a long shot even. And so that throws the audience out a little bit of this shot, and then we go back into this medium shot of the princess picking up the frog. Think about why. Why are you pushing the audience away before we go to this action of picking up the frog? Are you trying to get a shot in between this shot and this shot to prevent this shot from being a jump cut? If so, maybe make this all one shot, or cut to a shot of the princess's face, or something. Change something else rather than going completely wide. Is that... Oh, okay, and that is it. There's only one in here, so maybe you missed the rest of the story. Okay, that is it. I'm pretty sure that is it. Let's have a look. Yes. Alrighty. Thank you very much. And we'll see you soon. Bye.